Hello, friends. So today I'll be talking on this topic. I'm sure many of you would have heard some of it. So steroids in ICU, when not to use. So it's just a general review of which all conditions steroids are used in ICU. So the topics that I would cover. So this was one of the talk I had given in some conference some time ago. So I just reviewed this as to all the clinical conditions where steroids are used and what is the evidence. So obviously for ICU, the bread and butter is sepsis and ARDS, where we tend to use steroids. So we'll just look into a very brief overview of what is the evidence prevailing in these two conditions. And another important area is pre-extubation, especially in a trauma patients. Many of them tend to have stridor after you extubate. So whether there is any evidence of giving steroids prior to extubation to prevent stridor. And I'm sure every listener would agree that steroids are continued to be used in all the spinal cord injuries, and whether there is any evidence and what are the society recommendations for the role of steroids in traumatic spinal cord injury. And traumatic brain injury, I'm sure all of you would agree there is no evidence. So we'll look into very briefly what is the evidence. And is there evidence for the use of steroids in polytrauma and burns, dengue, and anaphylaxis? So these are some of the, so it will be a very brief overview on the pertinent evidence that may be available to debunk the thought of using steroids in some of these conditions. So for the sepsis, I would straight away jump into the more later trials, and then I will give you a brief overview. So with regards to sepsis, the adrenal trial is the key article that one would look at for whether steroids is beneficial. So the background is the use of corticosteroids in septic shock is controversial. So the role of steroids in intensive care may have been established in maybe anaphylaxis, although evidence for that also is not very strong, or pituitary dysfunction, or steroids one would use in patients who are already on steroids and who are dependent on corticosteroids, or someone who has had a recent use of steroids or who has been on steroids for about 6 months, maybe we may have to use a replacement dose, or in refractory septic shock. So these are some of the conditions where there is some sort of a signals towards using steroids. And in sepsis, there is a whole concept of relative adrenal insufficiency in septic shock. Our understanding is there is more stress and there is more need for cortisol. So greater the stress, greater is the need for cortisol in a body to mitigate and circumvent this stress aspect. So let us look into the whole history of trials of steroids in septic shock. So I've divided into two major categories. So for all the trainees, it would be useful to just recall all the trials so far that have been done of the role of steroids in sepsis and septic shock. So I'll first look into the positive trials, which so there are umpteen number of trials. We'll look very briefly into positive trials that favored the use of steroids in septic shock. So the first role of steroids started in 1970 by Schumer et al. 1976, where they used a methylprednisolone at a very high dose, 30 milligram per kg in septic shock. 172 patients were looked in, and they compared methylprednisolone versus saline versus placebo, and they found that the methylprednisolone had a beneficial effect, and there was more mortality in the placebo group. After that, the other landmark trial that came was Anayan et al. I'm sure most listeners would have heard of this. This was a French trial, which was a randomized controlled trial where they divided the patients of sepsis into ACTH, adrenocorticotrophin hormone responders and non-responders. Responders is where they had a good ACTH response and steroids, the cortisol response was optimal, so they did not use steroids. But where steroids was given in patients who were non-responders, where after ACTH administration, they did not increase the cortisol levels, they had given steroids. And they found that in that group, hydrocortisone with fludrocortisone showed reduction in mortality. So this was one of the study that encouraged people to start using steroids in sepsis and septic shock. So when I was in Australia, we used to use ACTH for all the patients with septic shock and look for whether they are cortisol responders or non-responders. And then in non-responders, we would give steroids, considering that they would benefit based on this Anayan trial. And it also showed that the duration of vasopressor usage was shorter in patients where ACTH response was there and steroids was used. So these were some of the positive studies. Then we look into the negative studies. So in 1980s, they showed the supraphysiological dose because after this Kumar et al., they did subsequent studies and they found giving such high dose of steroids increased mortality and there was no survival benefit. So one of the study was Cronin et al. From Canadian group, which came in 1995, which was a meta-analysis which showed use of steroids increased mortality in septic shock. And then there was this other study called Coit's trial, which came in 2010, again by the French group, where they used hydrocortisone with fludrocortisone and they showed no survival benefit. So as you see from this slide, as many positive trials are there, that many negative trials. So there is a lot of nebulousness and ambiguity as to whether steroids has any role at all. Then there are certain studies which are in between. So this was a study which came way back, Journey et al., which was a prospective observational study. Again, they looked at ACTH responders and non-responders, and here they brought about this concept of relative adrenal insufficiency, which was adopted by Anand group et al. Then the Corticus trial, which is a more recent trial, it came in 2008, done by the European group. So here they looked hydrocortisone, they found there was no improvement in survival, but what they found was there was a good shock reversal in patients with septic shock where hydrocortisone was used. So this is the background of all the studies in steroids in septic shock. So as you see, there are positive studies, there are negative studies. So what we have so far believed is in this Corticus trial that there is no survival benefit, but it improves the shock or there is a shock reversal, which is going to be better. So in the face of this background, the adrenal trial came. And then there was this meta-analysis. As you see, this was a meta-analysis which showed this is a corticosteroid group and placebo group. There was some mortality benefit, and you see this is statistically significant. In severely ill septic shock, there was benefit, but patients who were less severely ill, it caused more harmful effects. So this was another meta-analysis which came from again Canadian group, 6 randomized controlled trial, 1,187 patients. They looked at mortality between steroid and placebo. There was no difference. So again, meta-analysis also was equipoised. One meta-analysis saying there is benefit, and the later meta-analysis came in 2009 and this came in 2009. So another one telling there is no benefit. And the limitation so far has been publication bias and there is increased heterogeneity. And basically all studies showed signal towards shock reversal. So on the face of this came this adrenal trial, which was a double-blind parallel group randomized controlled trial. It came in 2018. So they had 3,800 patients with septic shock who were on mechanical ventilator. So here they compared hydrocortisone versus placebo for 7 days or until discharge or death. And the hypothesis was hydrocortisone usage will reduce the mortality. So this study was done in 69 medical ICU and surgical ICU in Australia, New Zealand, Saudi Arabia, and Denmark between 2013 and 2017. So they conducted this study over 4 years. So the inclusion criteria was septic shock patients who are on vasopressors and who may have been on mechanical ventilator or NIV. And on vasopressors, their systolic blood pressure should be maintaining for more than 90 for at least 4 hours or MAP more than 60 for 4 hours. So this was their inclusion criteria. And the exclusion criteria was whether if someone was already on steroids for any other indication, that was an exclusion. If someone was on etomidate or someone had malaria, strongyloids, or any patient where they would know there will be imminent death, even with whatever treatment is going on, they would exclude the study. These are typical exclusion criteria in any study. So interventions, the median duration of steroids, they used hydrocortisone for 5.1 days, placebo, the median duration was 5.6 days. So the primary outcome was to look at the mortality. So this was a very big study, 3,658, 1,832 in hydrocortisone group, 1,826 in placebo. They looked at 90-day mortality. As you see, there's no difference between hydrocortisone and the placebo group. Then they looked at resolution to shock, where shock reversal happened. And they saw shock reversal happen much early in hydrocortisone, 3 days versus 4 days. And that was statistically. So as I said, all the previous studies showed signal towards good shock reversal with hydrocortisone. And that has always, with steroids. And that has always been the study findings in the previous studies as well. And they looked at the duration of mechanical ventilation. As you see, the duration of mechanical ventilation was less in hydrocortisone group as compared to the placebo group. And they looked at the transfusion requirement, and even they found transfusion, the need for transfusion was significantly less in hydrocortisone group as compared to the placebo group, and that was also statistically significant. So, and they looked at secondary outcomes. So they looked at various secondary outcomes of 28-day mortality, recurrent shock, survival out of ICU, median duration to discharge from hospital, survival out of hospital, mechanical ventilation free days, RRT, new onset bacteremia. If you see, there is absolutely no difference between any of these. So primary outcome, there's no mortality benefit. Only benefit they found was shock reversal was better, need for transfusion was better, and the median the duration of mechanical ventilation was less. And they looked at adverse events. When you look at adverse events, it was significantly higher in hydrocortisone group as compared to the placebo. Hyperglycemia was more, and hypernatremia was more, and some of them had encephalopathy, and serious adverse events also was more. And the striking sort of a side effects was they had a myopathy, the steroid group, and they had a ischemia, bowel ischemia in some patients, and they had abdominal wall diseases. So these were some of the more severe sort of a side effects that they found in hydrocortisone group. So the strength of this study was the primary outcome that they looked was clinically significant, which means the shock reversal and the duration of mechanical ventilation was significant. And they compared this adrenal trial with all the previous trials, ANAN trial, Corticus trial, VAST trial. As you see, the number of patients that were recruited was much, much higher than the previous studies. So that is the strength of this study. This was one of the largest study conducted over 4.1 years. So the conclusions they made was in patients with septic shock on mechanical ventilator, comparing hydrocortisone versus placebo, the steroid group did not reduce 90-day mortality, but it showed improvement in the shock reversal, mechanical ventilator free days, ICU length of stay, and the transfusion requirement was less. So this was the conclusions of this study. And this was the cartoon that made rounds after this study, that you don't have to look at mortality as an endpoint. Rather, you have to look at various other endpoints that they looked at: shock reversal and duration of mechanical ventilation and transfusion and so on and so forth. So during this study, another study came from French study, which was approach trial. This was a positive study favoring use of steroids. So this was a multicentric, double-blind, randomized controlled trial, where here they used hydrocortisone along with fludrocortisone, and they compared with hydrocortisone with fludrocortisone with drotrecogin alpha versus placebo. So it was a three-armed study, and this kind of study was conducted by French group in 34 ICUs between September 2008 and June 2013. Primary outcome was 90-day mortality. Secondary outcome, they looked at 90-day, 180-day mortality, and ICU and hospital mortality. They also looked at vasopressor free days, mechanical ventilator free days, and organ failure free days. Inclusion criteria was septic shock less than 24 hours, SOFA of 3 to 4 for 6 hours, and they should have been on vasopressor for 6 hours, maintaining systolic blood pressure of 90, MAP of 65. These are very typical inclusion criteria as you would have seen in adrenal trial. Exclusion criteria is if septic shock was lasting more than 24 hours, they excluded. If patient had increased risk of bleeding, hypersensitivity to drotrecogin alpha, breastfeeding, steroids, who are already on steroids, and who are imminent death or unlikely survival. So if you see, these criteria were very similar to the adrenal trial. So the intervention was hydrocortisone was given at 50 mg 6 hourly, along with fludrocortisone 50 micrograms once a day for 7 days. And here they checked cortisol levels at baseline, and here they gave corticotrophin 250 micrograms, and they checked the cortisol levels at 30 minutes and 60 minutes. So primary outcome was to look at 90-day mortality. So they recruited 1,241 patients, 614 in hydrocortisone and 627 in the placebo group. 90-day mortality, as you see, was significantly less in hydrocortisone group as compared to the placebo. So this was a positive study where the hydrocortisone group showed mortality benefit. And if you look at the table here, so if you look at the primary outcome of death, so it was significantly less. This is the hydrocortisone group with fludrocortisone. And if you look at the death at ICU discharge, it was significantly less at 35.4 as compared to 41%. And death at hospital discharge was significantly less. Death at 180-day death also was significantly less in the hydrocortisone and fludrocortisone group. and organ failure free days was more, which is again a good thing in hydro. So this was a hugely positive study favoring the benefit of usage of steroids in septic shock patients. But again, if you look at the side effects, as similar to the adrenal trial, the side effects were more in the hydrocortisone and fludrocortisone group, and predominant side effect was hyperglycemia. As you see, 89.1 compared to 83.1, that was significant. So the conclusions this approaches trial made was 7 days treatment with hydrocortisone 50 micrograms 6 hourly, along with fludrocortisone 50 micrograms once a day, reduced 90-day mortality and reduced the ICU and hospital mortality. So this was a very, so this study came in the same year as the adrenal trial came, where adrenal trial said no mortality benefit, but this study where hydrocortisone given along with fludrocortisone showed mortality benefit also. So putting all the trials together, I think conclusions one can make is corticosteroid only if you have to vouch for approach study which showed mortality benefit, but overall, all in all, yeah, the most trials do suggest there is no mortality benefit in septic shock. But what corticosteroids have shown is it helps in shock reversal. So the conclusions one can make is corticosteroids not to be used in sepsis without shock. So in any sepsis, one would not want to use corticosteroids, but if there is a septic shock, one could consider using because most studies tend to signal towards shock reversal. But mortality benefit, if you have to look at the evidence, the only study that you have is the recent one, at least, is the approach study, which showed some mortality benefit. So I would leave it at that for the listeners to make their decisions when they're treating the patient. So now we'll move to corticosteroids in ARDS. So sepsis, we did deliberate on all the evidence. So let's look into ARDS. So I will straight away jump into the latest article that came, which came by the Spanish group in 2020. It came in Lancet. This was a positive study where they used dexamethasone treatment for ARDS multicenter randomized controlled trial. So this was a multicentric randomized controlled trial over 17 ICUs. Here the inclusion criteria was moderate to severe ARDS. They took sick ARDS patients with PaO to FiO2 less than 200 who are on FiO2 of more than 50% with PEEP of more than 10 for 24 hours. So interventions here, they used dexamethasone 20 milligram once a day. So if you want to compare with the methylprednisolone, it equals to 106 milligram of methylprednisolone. They used for day 1 to day 5. And this was weaned to 10 mg once a day, which comes to around 53 mg methylprednisolone from day 6 to day 10. So they gave it for 10 days at this dose, dexamethasone. So they gave a high dose because in COVID ARDS, I won't be touching about COVID. So in COVID ARDS, you would use around 8 mg. So here they've used a much higher dose, which amounts to around 106 milligram methylprednisolone. Primary outcome was to look at 28-day ventilatory free days. Secondary outcome was to look at 60-day mortality. So they had 277 ARDS patients who are sick ARDS patients who are on ventilator, 139 in the dexamethasone group, 138 in the control group. They looked at ventilatory free days, which was higher in dexamethasone, which is a good thing because there was a reduced duration of mechanical ventilation that was statistically significant. And most striking thing is they looked at 60-day mortality, which was significantly less in dexamethasone group as compared to the control group, and that was also statistically significant. And they looked at serious adverse events. There was no difference between dexamethasone and control group. And hyperglycemia was more in dexamethasone group. And newer infections, there was no difference between dexamethasone groups. So as you see, these side effects, there was no statistical significance. Newer infection also, there was no significance between two groups. And the need for prone ventilation was significantly less in ARDS patients where dexamethasone was used, 20% as opposed to 30%. And the SOFA score also was lower at day 3 in dexamethasone group. And PaO2 by FiO2 also was higher in dexamethasone group at day 6. So this study is a hugely positive study, came from the Spanish group. It tells using high dose of dexamethasone, 20 mg, which equals to 106 milligram of methylprednisolone, showed mortality benefit and showed improvement in the PaO2 FiO2, showed the SOFA score could be brought down, and ventilatory free days also was higher, which is a good thing. So this is a Kaplan-Meier curve. So in the discussion, the main way the authors propose is The dexamethasone group had a significant effect on reducing the inflammation in the lungs and reducing the inflammatory exudate in the lung. So they even did a subgroup analysis where they looked at death due to multi-organ failure in dexamethasone group that was significantly less, 9% versus 17% in the control group. And the strength of this study was this is the largest randomized controlled trial in ARDS, no biases. There was no selection bias, no performance bias, no attrition bias, no reporting bias. So if you have to subscribe to this study, the evidence tend to favor, if you have to look at the most recent evidence, that dexamethasone or equivalent dose of steroids may have a benefit in ARDS. But let us look into all the previous studies, what they have shown. So this was the earliest study which came in 2010, Meduri's trial, methylprednisolone in early severe ARDS. So I'm going back to the older trials. This came in 2007 in the chest, randomized controlled trial done across 5 hospital ICUs. And this study was done in 91 patients where methylprednisolone was used within 72 hours of ARDS onset. 66% of these patients were having sepsis. Primary endpoint was to look at reduction in the lung injury score by single point and extubation at 7 days. So they had 91 patients, 63 in the methylprednisolone group. Here they used methylprednisolone as 1 mg per kg per day as an infusion for 28 days. Placebo was 28. So they found the reduction in the lung injury score by 1 point was significantly higher, which means your ARDS or the lung injury score came down in methylprednisolone group as compared to placebo. That was significant. And patients were extubated much earlier. So when they looked at 7 days extubation, the number of patients who were extubated was much higher in the methylprednisolone group, 53.9% compared to 25%. Again, significant. Mortality was significantly less in methylprednisolone group, and ICU length of stay also significantly less in the methylprednisolone group. And duration of mechanical ventilation also was lower. And even the risk of infection was lower in the methylprednisolone. As you see, they're all statistically significant. This is a hugely positive study. And the CRP also was lower and at the day 7. So this is a study which came in 2007, which hugely favored the use of steroids in ARDS. And the regime they suggested was 1 mg per kg as an infusion over 24 hours. After this study, or during this time, this was another study which came by the ArtsNet group. It came in NEJM 2006. This was a negative trial. So this was a randomized controlled trial. Again, looking at the role of steroids in ARDS. Primary endpoint was 60-day mortality. Secondary endpoint was to look at ventilatory free days, organ failure free days. Here, if you see Meduri study, it had 91 patients. This study had 180 patients. 89 were on methylprednisolone, 91 were in placebo group. So here they used a much higher dose. Here the dosage they used was 2 mg per kg as a bolus. So if you take a 60 kg, 120 mg they would have given as a bolus, followed by 0.5 mg per kg 6 hourly, which means if it's a 60 mg, 30 milligrams of methylprednisolone, they would have given 6 hourly for 14 days. Very high dose they gave. And then they weaned it at 0.5 mg per kg 12 hourly for 7 days, and then they were tapered. So these patients received a little higher dose, and then they slowly weaned it over course of time. So 180 patients, 89 were in early methylprednisolone group. When they say early, here they divided the patients in early and late. Early means 7 to 13 days, placebo was 19. So when you looked at 60-day mortality, no difference between methylprednisolone and placebo group. They looked at 180-day mortality, no difference between methylprednisolone and placebo group. But they looked at a patients who got methylprednisolone after 14 days, and they saw that 60-day and 180-day mortality tends to increase, and that was statistically significant. And mechanical ventilation plus organ failure free days also increased. And the infections, there was no increase in the late patients. So the conclusions one could derive is in early stages, it did not do harm, but neither did it cause benefit. But if we give steroids at the later stage, after 14 days, it caused more harm, it increased the mortality. So this was the findings. So based on these findings, there was a lot of apprehensions, even with us, to use steroids at a later phase in ARDS, and there was some signal towards some benefit in the early phase. So to have a more clarity from Meduri's trial and this ArtsNet group study, then the meta-analysis came. This came by Australian group in critical care medicine in 2009. So here, so this is the group. So just request listeners to pay little attention. So the methylprednisolone studies they took was where they used 0.5 to 2.5 mg per kg. So they took 5 cohort studies with 307 patients in one group. Then they took 4 randomized controlled trials and they evaluated, consisting of 341 patients. So when they took only cohort study, the relative risk reduction with the use of steroids was 0.66, but that was not statistically significant. And the relative risk of reduction in mortality with RCTs was 0.51. P, as you see, was not significant. But when they combined the cohort studies and randomized control study, so what they found is they attained statistical significance. They did a meta-regression analysis, and then they looked into the statistical significance. Relative risk was 0.62, and P attained statistical significance. So following this, there were signals towards possible benefit with the use of steroids. And if you look at the forest plot, so basically, if you take only cohort studies, there was no significant benefit with steroids. When they looked only at randomized control trial, no benefit. But when they combined both cohort studies and randomized, did a meta-regression analysis, then they found a statistical significance. So this is the forest plot again, typically showing that. And even the duration of mechanical ventilation tended to favor in the steroid group in patients in this meta-analysis. And MOD score, as you see the diamond moving towards the left, it favored the use of steroids in this meta-analysis. So all in all, the conclusions we can make is corticosteroid is harmful in late ARDS. More than 14 days, one should not use. The recent evidence, at least from the Spanish group, which has come in 2020, signals towards possible benefit with the use of corticosteroids in ARDS in an early phase. So this is what we can see. Even in the CAP, community acquired severe CAP, there are signals towards benefit with the use of steroids. So we understand severe CAP, the next phase would be ARDS. So these are the maybe a distinct cohort of patients who may possibly benefit from early usage of steroids. So this is the conclusions we can draw from all the studies that we have reviewed. So now we'll very quickly move into the other conditions like steroids for pre-extubation. So this was a meta-analysis which came by the French group, which is the largest possible study. They took 7 prospective randomized controlled trials with 1,846 patients to analyze the study. 949 were in the corticosteroid group. So they looked at reintubation rates. As you see, the use of corticosteroids led to reduction in the reintubation rate. So the relative risk was 0.58, confidence interval is statistically significant. Number needed to treat was 28, which means use of steroids in the group showed reduction in the risk of reintubation. And they looked at stridor. So in the steroid group, the risk of stridor was significantly less. Relative risk was 0.48. And if you look at the confidence interval, this is statistically significant. So the use of steroids reduced the risk of stridor in patients. And number needed to treat was 11. And what they found was they looked at high risk patients. When they looked at a subgroup of high risk patients who are at a risk of reintubation, the effect was more pronounced. Which means if you have a patients who are at a high risk of possible extubation failure, so there the use of steroids had a much more pronounced effect because you had a relative risk of 0.38 and number needed to treat came down significantly, and confidence interval also is statistically significant. But in patients with a low risk of reintubation, the benefit was uncertain. As you see, it loses statistical significance. This is a subgroup analysis they look. And even if you look at use of steroids in patients who are at a low risk for stridor, there was no benefit. So what it means to say is this meta-analysis highlights in patients where we consider they're at a higher risk for reintubation or a higher risk of stridor, there the benefit of steroid was more pronounced. And this is a group of patients where one could consider use of steroids. And these are the group which possibly the type of groups I can think of is where there was a difficult intubation or a trauma patient, typically polytrauma patients where the risk of stridor is more. There, the use of steroid prior to extubation may possibly have a benefit if you have to subscribe to this study. So the conclusions one can draw is corticosteroids are only beneficial in high-risk patients for preventing stridor and reducing reintubation, and benefit is seen when administered 4 hours prior to extubation. Routine use of corticosteroids prior to extubation is not recommended. So for all patients, we don't need to use steroids. So we have to stratify the patients who are at a higher risk of extubation failure or who are at a risk of stridor. For me, this is a group which is typically the trauma patients, polytrauma patients, or patients who have had a difficult intubation or airway manipulation. These are the patients who may be at higher risk, where one could consider use of hydrocortisone or a dexamethasone 4 hours prior to prevent reintubation and stridor. So that is the conclusion we can make. So let's look into this steroids in spinal shock very quickly. So I won't touch about all the studies. There are a lot of observational studies, cohort studies, but what we look into is the landmark trial NASIS 3 study, and then we look into the society guidelines. So when you look at here, they looked at methylprednisolone was administered for 24 hours within 3 hours, and methylprednisolone was used for 48 hours, and then they used the tirilazid mesylate. So there were three groups. Tirilazid mesylate was a drug used as a neuroprotective measure. They looked at recovery; it was similar. This is, and then here they looked at use of steroids for 3 to 8 hours after the injury. So they looked at recovery was diminished in methylprednisolone group. Here, where steroids was used for 48 hours, there was improvement in the motor function, but there was no functional recovery. And where tirilazid was used, recovery was diminished. And they looked at mortality and morbidity. It was similar in all these groups. And infections were higher in methylprednisolone. So the NASIS 3 study most definitely showed that there was no benefit with the use of steroids in improving the functional recovery or any recovery for that matter. And there was no effect of use of steroids in improving the survival also. And what they found was infections was higher. So let us look into society guidelines. If you look at American Society of Neurological Surgeons, they do not recommend use of corticosteroids in traumatic spinal cord injury. And then when you look at Canadian Association of Emergency Physicians, they say corticosteroid is a treatment option, but it is not a standard care for all the patients with spinal cord injury. Then there is this consortium for spinal cord medicine. They suggest there is no clinical evidence exists to definitely recommend the use of steroid therapy for traumatic spinal cord injury. So this is where we are at. So the society guidelines clearly say there is no routine use of steroids in patients with traumatic spinal cord injury. And NASIS 3 trial is the landmark study which clearly showed there's no benefit with the use of steroids in improving the functional recovery or any recovery for that matter, and there is no mortality benefit. So let's look into traumatic. I'm sure every listener would agree traumatic brain injury, there's no role of steroids. If you're looking at evidence, this is the Cochrane database which review which came in 2005, which is the largest study, 20 trials, 12,303 patients. Mortality, there is no benefit. Risk ratio, if you see, there's no benefit with corticosteroids. And the infections, also there was no benefit. And GI bleed also, there was no difference. So basically in traumatic brain injury, steroids should no longer be routinely used in patients with traumatic brain injury. So what about polytrauma? So this is an interesting study which came in 2011. It's called a Hippolyte study. This came again from the French group, multicentric randomized controlled trial done in 7 ICUs, 150 patients, 73 in the corticosteroid group, 76 in the placebo group. They looked at the infection rates of hospital-acquired pneumonia or ventilator-associated pneumonia. What they surprisingly found was in polytrauma patients, the use of steroids reduced the risk of developing hospital-acquired pneumonia or VAP, and that was statistically significant. And they looked at mechanical ventilator free days, it was higher in corticosteroid, which is again a good thing they found. And they had hyponatremia, which appeared more in the placebo group. And mortality, there was no difference. So basically, this study is a little sort of a uh, sort of a study which tries to say that in patients with polytrauma, use of steroid had some beneficial effect in reducing the duration of mechanical ventilation and reducing the risk of hospital-acquired pneumonia or infection. But this is only one study. Possibly we cannot base our conclusions that we routinely use corticosteroids in polytrauma based on one single study. Okay? So the conclusions one can make is routine use of corticosteroids in polytrauma cannot be recommended based on this single study. Although the study tells it reduces the risk of pneumonia and reduces the duration, and there's no mortality benefit, but one study we cannot possibly make logical conclusions. So burns, the studies have shown that the infection rates increases with the use of steroids, and there is no role for the use of corticosteroid in burns. And this is the reference study for that, for the trainees. What about dengue? So I'm sure many of the listeners would agree that many places people do use steroids in dengue. So there are 4 trials. This was a meta-analysis done by the Thailand group. 4 trials of 284 patients, corticosteroids and placebo. They found mortality no benefit. If you see confidence interval, not statistically significant. And they looked at the transfusion requirement, whether use of corticosteroids reduces the risk of blood product transfusion, and that there also there is no difference. So it does not improve platelet count, or neither does it reduce the need for any transfusion. So this was a study which came from Vietnam, randomized controlled trial in dengue patients, where they used steroids within 72 hours. So they had 225 patients. One group, they got a low dose corticosteroids at 0.5 mg per kg for 3 days. The second group got higher dose of corticosteroids at 2 mg per kg for 3 days and compared with placebo. They looked at recovery. All the patients recovered. Serious adverse events were nil in all 3 groups, and hyperglycemia was more in steroids. So there was no benefit. Basically, the results were same across the board in all these patients. Possibly, these were all very stable patients because they took 5 to 20 years, and they've taken all stable patients, and they found there was no benefit with the use of steroids. So this was another meta-analysis which looked at 8 studies, 948 patients, and all showed no benefit of corticosteroids. So the conclusions one can make is there is no evidence for the use of corticosteroids in dengue shock syndrome. So this is the last slide, anaphylaxis. So I'm sure all of us have a notion that steroids are beneficial. In anaphylaxis, the key life-saving agent, as we all know, is adrenaline. So steroids, albeit it is used to prevent biphasic response, recurrence of the shock, and it is not useful to mitigate immediate reaction. And corticosteroids can only be used for 48 hours and stop. And if you look at the Cochrane review database, the evidence is not strong even for the use of corticosteroids in anaphylaxis. In the Cochrane, they say recommendations cannot be made for the routine use of corticosteroids in anaphylaxis. Even if it is used, it should be used for a very short term of 48 hours and not more than that, because it is only to prevent subsequent uh, aftermath of anaphylaxis or subsequent effects of anaphylaxis, but not for mitigating the immediate anaphylaxis. For immediate anaphylaxis, the life-saving drug is always going to be epinephrine or adrenaline. So thank you very much. So I would end my talk with this nice quote from our beloved Prabhupada. So thank you all. So you can visit my website to rehear to this lecture and leave your comments. Thank you all.